Hello world, and we are back. My name is Kyle Fischl. This is going to be episode 139 of my poker vlog. For this one, I play a 1-3 session at One Eye Jacks in Sarasota, Florida. I have several interesting spots for this lower than normal stakes game for me, and we're going to get right into those hands. So we arrive at One Eye Jacks at Sarasota, Florida. On this Wednesday, 1-3 is the biggest game running, so we hop into that game. On the first interesting hand, with one limp, I'm in middle position with pocket kings. I raise to $20. The button and the limper call, so we end up going three ways to a flop of Jack, Jack, 10, 2 hearts. Not my favorite, all things considered, with pocket kings. I think a jack is pretty smack in the limp caller's range as well as just a regular caller. Not seeing myself getting 3 streets of value from a worse hand, I check the flop. The later position player checks back, so we're 3 ways to a turn card, which is the 8 of spades. Also brings in queen 9, 9-7, some straights. Not a particularly good card. And the early position player leads out for $15. Well, I'm definitely not folding with a severely underrepped pocket kings. So I decide to make the call, and the later position player gets out of the way. So we're heads up to a river card, which is a bink king of spades. So if my opponent ever had a queen 9, that's a pretty sick river card. When my opponent checks to me, I choose to size big here, which I actually think is a mistake in hindsight. I think if my opponent had a queen 9 or a random jack, he's probably just betting himself. So when he checks to me, he's probably a lot weaker than that. In the moment, I thought polar was the correct answer, as if I had like ace-x of hearts and bricked, I would bet pretty big, hoping to get my opponent to fold. So that's what I'm going to do when I have pocket kings. I bet $75, and it does not take too long for my opponent to fold. It's likely his lead on the turn and check back on river was missed hearts himself. So we win a small one, but not as much as we would hope to when we river off full house. But a few hands later, we look down at pocket sixes. With one limp, I choose to limp it as well. The button has other plans, raises to $20. Both the other limper and myself decide to call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of Jack, Jack, 6, 2 diamonds. Well, we are flopping sets today. When it checks me, definitely going to check to the preflop aggressor. Hopefully he has a jack or some sort of overpair where we will happily get stacks in with this player. When we check to him, he does not disappoint. He throws out a bet of $15, and the player to my direct right decides to call as well. So now we're going to raise right now. It's highly likely one of these players has a jack, has a flush draw, has an overpair. I don't think it's too likely both these players completely whiffed when they're putting money into a board this somewhat dry. So I raise right now, $50 will be the bet, and this must have been a massive mistake as both players snap fold. So definitely did not get the max when we flop a full house, but we do win the pot. Following that, I'm in early position. I look down at ace 10 of clubs. I raise to $20, pretty much my standard open even though we're in 1-3. Only the big blind calls, so we're heads up to a flop of 6 3 deuce rainbow 1 club. When it checks to me, I'm very rarely ever going to connect on this board. I do have the overpairs in range, but even those would check some of the time on this particular flop, especially against the big blind specifically. So when he checks to me, I check it back. Turn a ton of equity with the 7 of clubs. 2 overs and a flush draw feels good enough to bet now. When my opponent checks to me, I'm definitely going to go closer to pot as I only have ace high. Maybe a 6, maybe a 7, 5-3, and ace 4 might fold. So we're going to throw out a pot size bet of $35. My opponent decides to call. Very disappointed to see that. Really hoping to see a club on the river. It does not come. River is a board pairing 3 of diamonds.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
As I'm considering whether to bluff on this river card, I don't get the option, as my opponent lead jams for approximately $75. And I don't think I can call a jam with just ace high. I mean, I blocked the club draw that I'm hoping he has that could be missing, so we're just going to let this one go and play another one. We win a small one before. I look down at ace queen of diamonds under the gun. I raise to $20. 4 different opponents decide to call, so we're going 5 ways to a flop of queen 9, 8, 2 spades, and a diamond. So we flop top. Obviously, Jack 10 has me drawing almost dead. That'd be somewhat disappointing. Against 4 other opponents, I think my hand functions better as a check call. I don't think it's strong enough to bet against this many multi-way opponents. People could be sitting in the weeds with a set of 8s, set of 9s, plenty of 2-pair combinations. So we're going to check this one and reevaluate on the turn. It checks to a later position player who goes all in for $81. Almost pot size all in, but when it folds back to me, I think my hand is definitely strong enough to call here. My opponent could have like ace jack of spades. They could have 10-9, queen 10, all kinds of pair plus straight draws. So we're definitely never going to let this one go. I make the call and the other opponent decides to fold. So now we get to see a run out, no more action. Turn 8 of clubs, honestly pretty safe. Eliminates some 2-pair and set combinations, so feel good about that one. Jack of spades completes everything, and I mean everything, as my opponent had queen jack. So
This is so going in my blog!
very disappointing to get a 7 outer on me on this one, but that's just the way poker goes sometimes. Following that, when an early position player opens to $20, I look down at ace-jack of spades. This is going to be one of my looser 3-bets, but in position, suited ace-jack I think is strong enough to include it, so we're going to raise this one up to $60. And everyone folds, but we take down $24 uncontested, always a decent result. And after that, with one limp, the cutoff raises to $20. The small blind calls. I'm on the big blind with queen 10 of diamonds. I think this hand plays fine multi-way, so we're going to make the call here and play some post-flop poker. We end up going 3 ways to 7-4-3-2 diamonds. Flopping 2 overs on a flush draw is as good as I could ever hope for. This is going to be one of my check-raising hands if my pre-flop aggressing opponent in the cutoff decides to continuation bet. I have 4-5 in range, 3-4, 5-6, pocket 7s. So many hands that would have the best hand as well as 2 overs and diamonds. So if he bets, this is going to be one of those check-raise spots. But they check it back. So we're still going 3 ways to a turn card, which binks the 5 of diamonds. Now that I've made my flush, I think just leading here gets a lot of my opponent's random 2 overs to fold. All his pocket pairs folding. 5 specifically adding a 4-liner on board, making the board very dangerous. But dangerous in the fact that I think that my opponent might throw out a bluff attempt with just single diamond holdings like Jack 10, 1 diamond, Ace 5, 1 diamond, things such as that. So we're going to check. Hopefully he throws out a bet. He does not take the bait. He checks it back. Somewhat disappointing. River's the 7 of spades. Really not worried about any full houses the way the hand's played out, but we're not going to let this check through. We definitely need to go for some level of value. When the small blind checks to me, I bet $30, very small, half pot. Maybe I can get looked up with some ace highs as I'm doing kind of an unbelievable line, but both players seem to not have much of anything. They fold, and we take down a smaller than I would like to pot when we make a flush. Following that, I look down at ace-jack offsuit in the cutoff. Ace of hearts, jack of clubs. Feels good. 1 limp to me. I raise to $20. The big blind and the limper choose to call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of queen 9, 4, 2 hearts. When it checks to me, I don't think this is a board where I'd like to c-bet with my exact hand. If I was going to bluff continuation bet, I'd like to have king jack for a gut shot, maybe 2 hearts for a flush draw. Having just backdoor straight and backdoor flush possibilities, I think it's fine to check this back and see a card for free, so that's what I do. And the turn is the 10 of hearts, probably the ginnest card I could pick. When it checks to me a second time, unfortunately I have to do a heart check because I wasn't certain of what my ace was, but very relevant in this hand. Now open-ended nut flush draw, but still just ace high. I think I have to go for a larger size bet. Hopefully get folds out of all the missed hands. Maybe even a 10 or a queen would fold. So we're going to size up a bit here. We make it $45. And this bet gets it done. Both players decide to fold, and we take down a decent pot with just ace high. And I'm in the game for $500. Got a little bit of profit now. Winning this 1-3 game feels good. Continue to win a very small pot before I get runner quads to take down the high hand of the day. This Wednesday, it's $599 for any quads. What a sick run out.
And there it was. The big bro in the sky had answered my prayers. Almighty 5.
Amazing to make $599 of rake back, and the whole table gets a $50 table share, so the promotions at Sarasota are very significant even if you don't hit the hand yourself. Now this deck's looking great. Into the game for $500, have a bunch in front of me. In this room, your high hand bonuses must add to the table, so that's why my stack looks like this now. Before there's 1 limp, the button limps. I look down at pocket 9s in the small blind. 2 black 9s definitely good enough to raise. Don't need a limp here, so I raise to $20. Both limpers decide to call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of 10, 7, 4, 2 clubs. Only 1 overcard's not enough to scare me away from continuation betting. I think it's highly likely all my opponents missed, and I can even get value from like flush draws and sometimes jack 8, 8, 9, although double blocking it makes it a little less likely. Either way, we're going to bet this one. We bet $30. And kind of shocking, the button calls immediately, even though the action's not on him. Middle position player grabs 30 like he's going to call and then looks at his cards, decides to throw them away. So maybe the button is just so strong and so excited he just gave away the strength of his hand. But when the deuce of spades hits the turn, complete brick, doesn't change anything. If my opponent flopped a set or a 2 pair, he's definitely pretty happy with his turn card. So I checked, definitely going to slow down, kind of a live read, but when he checks it back, we're going heads up to a river card, which is the 4 of clubs. Pairs the board, clubs complete, doesn't introduce an overcard, reduces the combination of pocket 4s, 7-4, 10-4. So kind of interesting river card. I checked to my opponent, really hoping to just get to showdown, maybe beat pocket 8s, pocket 6s, 6-7. But my opponent does not check it back. This time he bets approximately $60 to $70. And I think pocket 9s functions pretty horribly as a bluff catcher in this point. I would rather have like 7-6 with no clubs than pocket 9s. I want my opponent to be able to have 8-9. I want my opponent to be able to have jack 9 and all those type of holdings for a bluff. But I double blocked the most obvious bluff candidate on the flop, so this is just going to be a fold from me, and we're just going to assume my opponent had the best hand. I win a small one before we finally get called for the 2-5 game. I get the same seat along with several of the 1-3 players, but we are playing 2-5 at this point, and what better way than start out with a PLO double board bomb pot. On this one, I have ace 10, 6, 3 double suited clubs and spades. With 6 players putting $10 into the pot, the top board comes out 9, 6, 3, 2 diamonds. Bottom board, ace, jack, 7, 2 spades. So we have 2 pair on top, spade draw on bottom, and a pair of aces. We actually connect pretty decently on both boards, and when every opponent checks to me, I think I can start building this pot. I can make a full house, I can make a pretty decent flush. There are plenty of possibilities where I scoop this one, but I don't think I need to pot it just yet. I only bet $40. It really doesn't thin the field at all as 3 players decide to call, so we're going 4 ways to 2 turn cards. Top one is 5 of diamonds. Diamonds complete, straights complete. Really bad card for the top board. Bottom board, 5 of hearts. Gives me a gut shot to a straight, which, could be relevant. But on these 2 turn cards, when it checks to me as now my hands are significantly weaker than they were on the flop, I'm going to just check this one back. Hope to realize some equity, make a full house, make a flush, make a straight. Plenty of ways to still win this hand given some river cards. The top river is the deuce of hearts, another bad one. Bottom river is 4 of spades. So we end up making a 10 high flush on that board. On this river, my opponents check it to me again. Now I have to think for a bit. Can I value bet a 10 high flush in a PLO double board bomb pot? Possibly. I mean, there are some works flushes that can pay me off, but I'm pretty much not very likely to win the top board at all. And if I pot it here, I'm definitely turning my flush into a bluff, and I'm pretty much always getting called by diamonds on the top board. So if I had the ace or the king of diamonds, I might consider turning this into a bluff, but I think I'm definitely going to win the bottom board, at least half the pot. So I just check it back, and I am winning half the pot. A queen high flush of diamonds will win the top board, and I will win the bottom board. But chopping a PLO bomb pot is still relatively profitable. It's a good extra spice to the game here. Before we reach a final hand of note, I look down at pocket 10s in middle position. I raise $20. A later position player decides to call, so we're heads up to a flop of queen 3-4 rainbow. My exact opponent in this hand had been very fit or fold. Either he connected and continued, or he just check folded. So one overcard, this opponent's definitely going to be one that I see bet on, even though there's a queen out there. I bet $25. My opponent folds. We take down another one before we rack up, hit the cage at a short and mostly 1-3 day at the poker table. So we are into the game for $500, out of the game for $11.89. Across 4 hours is a profit of $689 an hour, which equates to $172 an hour or 57 big blinds an hour. Yeah, hitting a high hand definitely saved the day. Apart from that, I only make $100 or so, but rake back is part of it as they take the jackpot for a reason. Nice to hit quads and get paid on that one. My next video coming up will be a 1-3 game at Orange City Racing Car Club where I get demolished. So stay tuned for that. It's definitely going to be at least a funny one, and I will see you on the next one.